let's talk about the Wayback Machine. To me, this is a really core tool. It is something we need to do. Obviously, we don't like linking to the misinformation. We want to link to an archived version. Sometimes that's really hard because social media, again, we just talked about Instagram. Archiving Instagram is a real pain in the you-know-what. And so I have a little bit of an update on that element that I can share with you as we get through this. But I want to just walk through, and for those of you signing up for my newsletter, I dedicated the most two recent editions of my newsletter to tips around the Wayback Machine. And I'm going to just quickly flow through some of those right now because the Wayback Machine got a big update to its Chrome extension. And if you don't already have, the Wayback Machine extension installed in Chrome, I have a link to it here, and I am going to make these slides available to everyone after the presentation. I will send it to the lovely folks at Jagran, and they can share it with all of you. And so I'm going to show you just some of the features in that, but then I'm going to show you a few other things. I recently interviewed the head of the Wayback Machine. He identified a few things I wasn't using and wasn't aware of, so I'm just going to share those with you. So if you get a chance, install that Chrome extension if you haven't already, because it is such a time saver and so helpful and so useful. So the first thing is, when you have it installed, you want to click there in the bottom right and sign in. If you haven't already created a free account at the Internet Archive, which runs the Wayback Machine, please go and do that, because when you are archiving material, it saves everything in your account. And I know there are times where I have archived stuff and then forgotten what I had archived. I was like, oh my God. So I know it's saved in the Wayback Machine, but I forget where it is and what the specific URL was. That's not an issue if you're signed in with the extension or you're signed in on the website when you do archives there. It will all be saved in your account, okay? Super helpful. So that's the first thing, is just make sure you do that. And then, the second part here is, when you open up the extension, there's a whole bunch of buttons and options, and I've given you a little bit of an overview here of what they are. And obviously, the big red one on top is Save Page Now. And one of the reasons why this extension is so helpful is, you're on a page, you want to archive it, you don't need to now go to archive.org and paste in the URL there. You can just hit this Save Page Now button in your browser, and boom, it starts to archive it. You can also check the little button underneath to take a screenshot as well. So, as you're probably aware, the Wayback Machine archives everything on the web page, all of the code. It archives the individual items and images and things like that. And it creates a capture to kind of replay the page later from its own code. But you can also click to get a screenshot, which I think is really helpful as well, to make sure that it is frozen in time of what you saw. You have options right off the bat there to click to see the newest, most recent capture of that particular page you're on, or the original, the oldest. You can click on the calendar button to see the full archives options for that specific page. And then, of course, you can look at all of the URLs archived for a domain and all of that. And the last thing I'll note is, there is a button here on this interface that says My Archive. And that's a way, if you're logged in, to go right to the page where all of the pages that you have archived in your account are there. So it's super helpful, super easy to use. Just want to note that there are some settings. If you click on the little settings wheel, you can sort of choose things. And the one that I really like is the first one I've checked there, which is Wayback Machine Count. So when you go to a page and you open the Wayback Machine plugin, it's going to tell you how many times that page has already been archived. And so you'll be able to see, like, oh, this has only been archived twice, and the most recent archive was 6 months ago. I should definitely capture this page right now. Or you may see, oh, this page has been archived hundreds of times, and the most recent archive was just a couple days ago. I probably don't need to resave it. And so that's really helpful. I also like the 404 found option, which is a chance to basically, if you load a page and the page is actually not loading, it's a 404, an error page, the Wayback Machine will pop up a little icon saying to you, hey, we have an archive of this. Would you like to go see it? So that's neat. And the last one, which is very close to all of you, is alert if context is available. And so what this actually does is it will tell you if this page has been fact checked. So they are incorporating IFCN data into the Wayback Machine as contextual information. And it will, oh, here's my cat trying to make an appearance. It will tell you if it looks like this particular, article has been, has already been archived or cleared here. All right, so Rosie, this is not a good time to come up on my desk. She always, she knows when I'm giving a presentation, and then shows up every time. It's just like clockwork. There is another settings option here, which is the general settings. The first one was the context settings. If you want to, you can actually set the Wayback Machine to automatically save any page, that you're sort of browsing on. And of course, if you click on Save to My Web Archive, it's going to be putting the pages that you're archiving in that archive. So you need to be signed in, and you need to have that checked in order to take advantage of that feature. So can't emphasize enough how great that plugin is. But here are a couple things, if you're already using that maybe you didn't know about. So number one, the Wayback Machine does have an API, which is, a way of pulling data directly from the Wayback Machine, and you need to be a programmer in order to be able to use it. But what's neat is that here's the thing you can do without needing to be a programmer. And I'm gonna demo these so you can see the difference. So if you want to see a list of all the pages archived for in this case, the domain osintme.com, you can pull it from the API of the Wayback Machine. And the reason why I'm showing you this is a super helpful way to get a list of archived domains for URL that is easy to copy and paste into a spreadsheet. So in this case, we can see all of the archive pages for osintme.com. It could be a very long list. In this case, it's not too crazy. And this would be super easy for us to just copy and paste into a Google Sheet, right? If we wanted to work with the data in that way. And then another option here, if you wanted to look at all of the URLs archived for osint.me, this one is a more kind of user-friendly display where it's from the archive. And here we can see the different URLs. We can see the number of captures. You can then kind of filter it if you want as well up here, which is super great and super helpful, right? And so that's really nice. And so there's two options to display the same data. One is a more kind of raw data element, which to me, this screams put it in a spreadsheet. And then this one, which is much easier to navigate as a human, right? And so basically what I've given you is the URL structures where you can replace osint.me in each of these with whatever particular URL you are interested in, and you could pull those up, okay? So that's an option there for you in the Wayback Machine if you didn't know and you want to see the full landscape of URLs archived for a domain. And then in terms of a couple features that you should really make sure you're aware of, the first one is the ability to compare changes between pages. So this is a relatively new feature in the Wayback Machine. If you are looking at an archived page on the Wayback Machine, you need to be on their website for this, not in the browser extension. You can highlight and click on this changes button at the top. And what it does is it brings up this kind of grid where it will show you all of the captures over the years that have been done for this particular page. And I just, for this example, picked a page on the New York Times Company website. And so we can see here, each of these little shaded squares tells us when captures were done. And we're able to then select two captures and say like, okay, maybe I want this recent one from March, and maybe I want this old one from 2022 in May. And then once you've chosen your two captures that you want to compare, you end up getting a side-by-side view of the page. And in this case, the major changes that had taken place was at kind of the foot of the page here. And we could see that, they had sort of changed the menu options and changed some of the text on the bottom. And so it is highlighting for us content that has been, added or content that has been deleted. So yellow indicates deletion, blue indicates addition. And so this is a way, because sometimes we can see a page has changed and we want to understand it. This is a way to compare them and have actually the Wayback Machine highlighted for us so that it's right in front of us and we can see, see what's there. I see we have a question. Do these features require a sign-in or subscription when it comes to the Wayback Machine? So no subscription at all for any of the things that I have shown you. In terms of sign-in, the thing that would require you to sign in is if you want to have the pages you are archiving either manually on the website or manually using the Wayback Machine plugin saved in your account. So that requires you to sign in if you want it to be saving your archives in your archive at archive.org. But the features of like the API, no, doesn't require a sign-in. This changes side-by-side view, no, doesn't require a sign-in. So keep that in mind. Another good question, how many archive versions can you compare at the same time? Is it just 2? Yes, currently it is just 2. You can compare 2 side-by-side of the same page to see what has changed between them. Thank you for those questions. Very, very topical and useful. And so that's what they have right now. It's a side-by-side, the same page. Last feature I wanted to show you for the Wayback Machine is, and this one, I got to tell you, I wasn't using until the head of the Wayback Machine told me about it. And I think it's really important. So when you are on an archived page on the web version of the Wayback Machine, this button will always be there in the upper right-hand corner about this capture. All right, so continuing with our New York Times page example, we've got a scenario here where, we've got the About page, about this capture opens up this little menu. And what it's doing here, and let me actually take a step back for a second, because to understand what we're doing here, we need to understand the nature of how pages are captured and archived. When they capture and archive a page, there are lots of different assets of that page. So an asset, could be the New York Times logo at the top. It could be an image that shows up on the page. And so as the Wayback Machine is capturing that page, it is saying, okay, so we have an image here, we have an image there, and each of those images, each of those elements and assets on a page has its own URL, right? Because when we build a web page, we bring together a whole bunch of different elements that each exist on a server somewhere that get kind of pulled up to show us a web page. And so what the About This Capture page is telling us is here are the different elements that we are kind of replaying in order to show you this capture. And so most of these are images, but sometimes there's also code like JavaScript code or what have you. And the Wayback Machine is letting you know, here are the elements we need to replay to make up this page. But the key thing that's really important to know is the timestamp part of this. So if you look, there's a URL corresponding to each image or piece of code. And then after that, it's telling us, plus 8 days, 19 hours. And so this gives you a sense that the most important takeaway here is that when you replay an archive, when you replay a capture from the Wayback Machine, some of the elements on that page may be pulled more recently, okay? So that image of the New York Times logo may be pulled from a capture of that logo that is only 8 days old, as opposed to being from 2022. Now, it's the same file name. So unless they have uploaded a brand new image on the same file name, it's not going to have changed. But the key thing here is if you are really interested in an image on a page, and that is a core thing of your investigation, you need to make sure you look at About This Capture to see how recently they are using the archived version of that image. Because if you want to say like, hey, this photo was not on the page until 2023 or what have you, you need to make sure that the archived page you're looking at pulled this capture from a time that is consistent with what you're saying. Most of the time, this is not going to be an issue, but you just need to be aware that this data is here. And if you are looking at the logo on the page or looking at an image on the page, you should always pay attention to About This Capture information. And of course, what you can do is you can click on any of the URLs here and go to the individual history for that particular image or piece of code. And so it's just a warning that with images, when they are replayed in front of you in the archive, sometimes they are pulled from a more recent version than the one you are looking at. Now, I hope that's not too confusing. If you want more details on it, I do have, one of my most recent newsletter talks about this a little bit. It doesn't undermine the credibility of pointing to a Wayback Machine and saying the page didn't look like this in 2023, but you need to just be aware of, in particular, if you are focused on the accuracy or the changes to an image, you should pay attention to the about this capture information and see how recently that image is being pulled from. And so, Val has asked, what does the different timestamps on the same page indicate, right? Does it mean that some elements are older? Yes, that's exactly it. You have different timestamps for different elements on the page, and it's telling you when they have, pulled these from. And so you get an idea here that when a page capture is replayed by the Wayback Machine, the text is almost always just going to be exactly what was captured at that time. But the images and elements of the page, they're pulling from individual archives that the Wayback Machine has made of those individual images. And so just for, efficiency's sake, it may pull a more recent archived version of that image to show you in that page. Now, in most cases, it's going to be exactly the same image because it's the exact same URL of that image. But there may be cases where somebody has replaced an image on a website and they have just, instead of uploading a new version of the image with a new URL, they've just uploaded it with the same name and replaced it. And that is the one warning piece you have to be aware of, is if they're updating these images and never changing the URL, it may actually be a different image. I realize this may sound a bit confusing. This is really simple. If you have a whole bunch of URLs that you want to archive, rather than manually having to do it one by one, you can just throw all of those URLs into a Google Sheet, and then you can basically upload that to the Wayback Machine to get it to archive all of them, okay? I have a step-by-step guide here of how to do it and where to go. It's super easy to do, and you'll be able to sort of go with that and follow with that, and be able to do the steps here. So you're going to link your Google account where the sheet is with your archive.org account. You do need to be signed in to do this, and then you'll have the option to archive the URLs. You just insert the link to your Google spreadsheet right here where I'm moving my mouse. And it's going to instantly batch process all of those and archive them. Super easy ways, time saver. If you've got like 20 URLs of a website that were all false content, this is the best way to go and archive those rather than manually having to go one by one and drop them in. And just my last little reminder is there's a wonderful advanced search option in the Wayback Machine, which enables you to really filter and drill down. So I've been asked for us to take a quick 5-minute break. So it's good timing here because these were sort of the two biggest core tools updates I want to talk about, but I have a bunch of others that are kind of small and quick and easy to get through. So I'm just going to keep overloading everybody with information here. But like I said, the slides are going to be made available to everyone. So if you're furiously taking notes and worried that you missed something, please don't worry about that. We'll send out the link to everyone. You'll have access to these. They're just Google Slides, so the link will always be there for you, and you can use it as a resource. All right. Thank you, Ferdy. Always great to see you and hear from you. Hope Frank is doing well. Rosie has disappeared for now, thankfully. Okay, so if you remember, I had kind of teased at the top, and I said I have an update for you about archiving social media.